Free house, anyone? Who would say no to a free house? Why would anyone say no to something free? Is it a con? Is it a trap? Is it part of the Great Reset? Is it a communist ploy? Who is driving this and who does it benefit in the end? Even if it is a trap, would you say no to a free house? Maybe you don't care and you just want a free house and you don't care what rights you have to give up. Something struck me yesterday. I recently put out a video about why hating landlords is bad for our economy. But before I put out that video, I wanted to do a bit of research on the other side or get another point of view of why some people hate landlords. So I watched a number of videos about why people hate landlords just to see it from their point of view and get their perspective. There were some valid points made within those videos and I agreed with some of the points that were made in those videos. But since then, YouTube and Google have done their thing and their algorithm has kicked in. I'm now seeing loads of videos on my feed about hating landlords and also promoting the idea of free housing. My need to question everything and not believe everything I hear kicked in, and something struck me. There was some serious communist and social undertones to a lot of these videos, and I questioned, who are these videos aimed at and who's funding these videos? Is it China or Russia? And who are they aimed at? Are they aimed at the people in Russia or China, or perhaps are they aimed at the West and they're trying to install these ideas in the West as well? To be fair, an awful lot of these videos weren't even trying to hide their connection with China. It was in their thumbnail, it was in their logo, and a lot of these videos were faceless videos.
The obvious solution is socialism, with publicly owned housing for all. Pretty much every single socialist country, both historically as well as today, had either eliminated homelessness or have negligent amounts, especially compared to the behemoth homeless populations of the US, UK, and rest of the so-called prosperous Western capitalist democracies.
But as the algorithm kicked in, I started to see articles and other posts, some even suggesting that communist blocs were better or far better and superior than Western suburbs. And again, the algorithm was really driving me down a rabbit hole on this one.
Affordable or even free housing is not only feasible, it's the norm in plenty of places around the world. When you take profiteering out of the equation, you free up funds that can go into making public housing amazing and available to all. The way socialists in Vienna, for example, have created public housing that not only looks great, but fully houses 62% of the city.
Before I go on, I'm not against free housing. I'm not against helping people that need it. My worry is how it is provided and at what cost. And I'm not just talking about tax dollars. I'm more talking about the cost that people might have to give up to get this. A lot of these videos had the same point. Landlords are bad, profiteering off land and housing is wrong, shelter is a necessity, and housing should be provided by the state. The benefits that were promoted within these videos were ending homelessness, and also everyone would get access to affordable housing, which is an aspirational goal and every state should be working towards that. And I don't think any government shouldn't be. I think governments should be providing houses for people that need it. A lot of these videos promoted the idea that socialism would end homelessness. I believe this is a false belief because many socialist and communist states have some of the highest rates of homelessness per capita. The most capitalist states that have the most economic freedoms in the world tend to have the lowest homeless rates per capita, including Hong Kong, Singapore, and Switzerland. Homelessness is a complex issue, and I'm not saying it can be solved by capitalism, but I'm also saying it can't be solved by socialism either. Many of these videos point to Vienna as the ideal socialist solution for housing, mainly because they can't point to China, Russia, or Cuba. But there's major holes in using Austria and Vienna as the shining light to socialism and solving the housing crisis. Even some of these videos are coming from Ireland and are pointing to Vienna as the ideal model.
Quality of life in these public housing developments is second to none. Why can't we have similar in Ireland?
Ireland is in the grip of the worst housing crisis in modern history.
Here in Vienna, in Austria, the situation couldn't be any more different. The authorities here in Vienna forbid the domination of housing by the property profiteers. For more than a century, Vienna has accorded priority to the provision of affordable housing. The roots of this progressive housing policy lie in the Red Vienna period of the 1920s, when thousands of municipal dwellings were built by the city government. The aim at this time was to provide affordable, high-quality housing to all sectors of the population, along with providing nurseries, schools, lending libraries, laundromats and other communal facilities. Close to 60% of Vienna's inhabitants live in public housing developments like this, or in similar dwellings subsidised by the city. The quality of life in these public housing developments is second to none. Why can't we have similar in Ireland?
But there are major flaws in using Vienna and Austria as a case study for socialist housing. One, Austria is not a socialist country. The one thing that Austria does have in its favour is that it does have some very strong social measures in place, including a lot of social housing and cost rental schemes. And in that context, it's also important to remember that Austria was a communist state at one point, and a huge amount of the housing that was constructed was during that communist period. It's even mentioned within the video that a large number of the housing was built in the 1920s. What's actually even more worrying to me is when Vienna is used as a case study is that 74% of the population are renting within the city, 64% of the population in the city are actually renting from the state or affordable housing, which is great. However, owning a home in Vienna is extremely expensive and only a very few people can do it, and it's out of reach for the majority of people in Vienna. Austria's homeless rate per capita is actually higher than Ireland's rate per capita, so therefore the social housing or affordable rent schemes that are in place in Vienna aren't solving that problem either. I also wonder why these groups use Vienna as their case study, because 74% of the population in the city are renting. Is that what they really want us to do? Granted, they are in state and affordable rental accommodation, but do they want 74% of Dublin renting from the state? Is that the end goal of these groups? And is that the situation we really want? Do we want the majority of people renting, even if it is renting from the state, and only a few very wealthy people have the ability to buy? Perhaps wrongly, or perhaps even more worryingly, my mind is now wired to see the Great Reset in nearly everything and see the World Economics Forum agenda play out across the world. Even these social justice groups want everyone renting from the state and want the state to control everything. So what is the scam or the trap of free housing or state-controlled housing? What do we really have to give up, and what are the true costs of it? One, someone will have to pay for it, so someone will have to pay more tax. But we're also going to have to give up ownership and the wealth and security and rights that come with property ownership. Do we give up the choice of where we live? Do we go on a waiting list and are assigned properties based on our work or perhaps our family status? Who makes those decisions and who assigns those properties? In my mind, the right to choose where you live is very important. The right to own land was very hard fought for, and I don't think it should be given up all that easily. There was one point in history that you only got a vote if you owned land. State ownership of housing creates a system to keep people down. It is also easier to control those people, and it is easier to abuse the system by the people in power. Getting a house will be more about knowing the right people or knowing who to bribe. But more worryingly, what happens if someone speaks out against the people in power? Those people have power over housing and those housing lists. Will people be removed from their homes, or the fear of removing from their homes if they speak out against the government or the state? Or will they be removed off the housing list altogether if they speak out against the people in power? And this is a situation that people need to think about very carefully. I believe balance is needed. Homes should be provided for people who can't provide for themselves. People should get a helping hand, and the state should do that, and no one should be homeless. I also believe the market should be more open and less interference from the state is needed. The state buying and renting from the private sector has caused major imbalance and drive prices even higher for the average buyer. People should have the right to work, make a profit, buy a house, provide for themselves and their family without hearing from the government every few weeks on how they're changing the rules within the property market. The idea that housing is a human right is aspirational and a good idea, but at the moment someone has to pay for it. No one is just going to bill for free. Much like food should be a human right, and perhaps even more important, but we don't expect a farmer to work for free, and we don't expect to walk into a restaurant or to a shop and walk out with free food. We're happy to pay for our choice within food, and perhaps arguably there should be some state food that's guaranteed to everyone all the time. But if we want a choice in our food market, we're going to have to pay for it. And the same is true within the property market. If we want choice within our property market, we're going to have to pay for it. Some locations are more desirable than others, and people will pay for that. Housing is not equal and never will be. If you found this video thought-provoking or perhaps opened up more questions, perhaps you might want to check out this video here. Perhaps you can like the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, thanks for watching.